Здравствуйте, это College Russian. Я Jenny, по-русски Жанна, and today we are going to be talking about plurals, all about plurals, in fact. This lesson might be a little bit overwhelming for some of you who this is your first encounter with Russian plurals, so to get the most out of this video, I highly recommend going over to collegerussian.com, the link that I put in the description below, and there's a worksheet you can download and print out that breaks this all down for you very simply. Then come back to this video and it will feel a little bit less overwhelming because we're going to have this moment where I test you on your knowledge of the plurals and so on and so forth. Now, if you already kind of have a grasp of Russian plurals, then you're going to do just fine with today's video and it's going to be a great review. Okay, so types of plurals. Over here I've got a menu and I have circled the plurals. As you can see, you've got e, and then ah. Okay, and then there's also I'll talk about some of the exceptions that happen when you're making plurals. So I always tell students that I is the default plural maker. Okay, just assume it's I and S unless it's after a soft consonant. Now, you're probably going to hear your teachers talk about soft consonants and hard consonants all the time, and it's kind of hard for us to grasp. That's why in the playlist after this video, you will find a video that I made years ago. It's one of my most popular videos about the difference between hard and soft consonants and how that affects the spelling and plurals and cases and so on and so forth. So that's in the playlist right after this video. You can go over and watch that, and by the end of it, you should have a really good grasp of the difference between hard and soft consonants. Okay, so I is the default plural maker. The other interesting thing about I is that you do not write it after certain letters. It's called the 7-letter spelling rule. So I, you're going to write I, for example, right here, kashi, napitki, chai. You're going to write that after a soft consonant. So chai, the original, is an ikratkaya, which is considered a soft consonant, and that's why that turned into an E. And then also you have to write E after any of the 7 letters. Again, if you're not familiar with what the 7-letter spelling rule is, the worksheet that I linked you to is going to help, and the video that comes after this video in the playlist is going to be very helpful to you. The other plural that you'll see shown in this menu is ah, which is weird. You'd think that would be a feminine, but if you see up here, the adjective is a plural adjective, so that's always a good hint to let you know that, oh, this is actually a plural. It's not a feminine. Otherwise, that would be горячая. So you get ah and ya when a neuter is being pluralized. And then lastly, we'll touch on it briefly in this video. Sometimes you will get masculines that have an irregular plural and they end in an a. For example, глаза, города, паспорта. So here we go. If you've got that worksheet and you've gone through it, then this is going to be a great little review for you. So what I want you to do is pause the screen and do a little test. See how well you know plurals. Some of these are going to be irregular, some of these are neuter, and you're going to have to apply all the different plural rules that you've learned so far. So pause the screen, I'm about to show you the answers. And then we're going to go through and explain why you got that plural on each of these words. So here's the answers. Столы, машины, слова, карандаши, друзья, подарки, словари, задания, дома, дети, англичане. Okay, so let's go through one by one and explain why that happened. Okay, so remember, I is our default plural maker. L is a hard consonant. We know that because it doesn't have a märkisnak afterward, and therefore an I is a perfectly fine way to make this a plural. And L is not one of the 7 letters, and N is not one of the 7 letters. So we're talking right here about stol and maschina. Those are hard consonants, and therefore we got the I. Next. Real quick, take a moment and apply this rule to these words. So all of these are hard consonants. There's no need for you to get an E on the end because these are all hard consonants. So all of these would have the I on the end. Рестораны, университеты, компьютеры. Next, let's talk about слова. So слова, the original of this, is a neuter. And neuters get a and ya endings. All right, so the O is going to turn into an A, and then you could apply that rule to these words as well. Места and правила. Правила, the word stress is going to change a little bit in some of these neuter plurals. That's something to keep an eye on. Next, карандаши. Okay, so why did we get E here, but we got I up here? That all has to do with the 7-letter spelling rule, which you can learn more about in the video that's up next in the playlist. So, yes, sh is hard, but it gets intercepted by the 7-letter spelling rule, which says that after these 7 letters, you have to write an E. If you don't know what those 7 letters are, look at the worksheet that I've linked you to or watch the video that comes next in the playlist. The next one, друзья. What? That's so weird. Where did that even come from? That has nothing to do with the word друг. And this is an exception. Oftentimes people words have an irregular plural. And if you go over to College Russian on Facebook, I've made a fun little chart as a way of kind of helping you remember what kinds of words get irregular plurals. So if you wanted to, you could apply this rule. These are some other examples. See, these are people words, brat, sestra, muž, and sure enough, they have irregular plurals. Next, подарок goes to подарки. So what's happening here is something called a fleeting vowel, and you can count on a fleeting vowel in Russian anytime you see the suffix ok on the end or the suffix yets. And that vowel right there is only present in the singular nominative form. Everywhere else it's going to disappear. So подарок goes to подарки, and we have an E right here because K is one of the 7 letters that you cannot write I after. So you could come through and apply this rule to these words as well. So the Y is going to disappear and it's going to become немцы. The ok is going to disappear and it's going to be звонки. Also right here, the Y is going to disappear and it's going to be отцы. So that's some examples of the fleeting vowel. Next, словарь went to словари. All right, so the мягкий знак tells us that this R is a soft R. So we cannot write a I after a soft R. It has to turn into an E. So there you go. And then you could apply this rule to тетрадь, that we know this D is soft, so this has to turn into an E. Тетради, кровать, кровати, цари. Those all are soft. They have to turn into an E. Okay, next. Задание, like homework. So this is a neuter, and the Y is going to turn into a ya. This again goes back to hardness and softness. You could apply this same rule here to these new words. Занятия, поля. Next, why did дом go to дома? This is an example of an irregular masculine, and when you have an irregular masculine, they typically will get what looks like a feminine ending, so an a ending, and these typically come with a stress shift as well. So глаз turns into глаза. Город turns into города. So notice the a at the end is stressed. And поезд turns into поезда. Next, ребенок means a baby, and then over here we get a completely different word. You're going to have this, there's only a handful of times that I can think of, only 2 off the top of my head, where you get a completely different word in the plural. So the only other one I could think of was человек becomes люди in the plural. If anybody else can think of another example of this, please leave that down below. I love nerdy little things like that. Then the last plural that we found is nouns ending with a nin on the end. This it's always describing a person first and foremost, and then notice what happens to the plural. It becomes kind of weird. Англичане, англичане. That doesn't look like a plural ending at all. Where did that come from? So this is just an exception, and you have to memorize it. Now you can try and apply that to some of these words as well. So for example, the nin just turns into a ñ on the end. Датчане, славяне, мусульмане. Notice these are all types of people: Danes, Slavs, Muslims. Okay? So if you want more practice, like I said, that worksheet, that really basic worksheet is available on collegerussian.com. And then if you go over to College Russian on Facebook, I made this fun little cheat sheet for some examples of irregular plurals. And it's just kind of fun to look at. Now, if you're in a fragile state, maybe don't look at it just yet. Maybe wait till your Russian gets a little bit better. But for the most part, Russian plurals are pretty straightforward, except for when they're not. Sorry, I couldn't offer more encouraging words, but go over and just have a good time looking at these irregular plurals, and you'll get the hang of them over time, so don't be too intimidated. The big thing right now is to memorize that 7-letter spelling rule. Хорошо, это все. Пока.